I just want to let you all know that Ohio has the best rest stops. I was in one about halfway between Morgantown and Columbus, and I saw this sign on the wall for an Earthworks Mound megalithic site. It was only 60 miles away, so I headed there, not knowing anything about it, never hearing of it, being almost completely unaware that these mound cultures existed so thoroughly in the Midwest, because where I'm from, we don't have any of these. So this whole video is about me stopping at this Earthworks site in Newark, Ohio, walking around and then getting the most in-depth tour you could imagine from a guy there that knows everything. So watch and pay attention, because he's going to explain everything you need to know about this place and you'll be blown away. I'm at the Octagon Earthworks site in Newark, Ohio, a 2,000-year-old megalithic, monolithic, religious, ceremonial site here, right smack in the middle of Ohio. And we're gonna go find out the history of this place, maybe who these people were, maybe further evidence that human civilization started in North America and then moved out before it returned.
Do you remember California, your red hair lying on the green lawn? It was one or the other, but we mixed both together and died there in the front yard under the sun. And you lied to your mom, you never loved anyone, but if you say it enough, it becomes true. And we sniffed the stash, you licked the bag. It was always my gift to you. Did you listen to my latest poem? I think it all finally came through. You were a dream I've been saving since the mothership landed. How did you feel it too?
Right now, I'm in the Great Circle Earthworks here in Heath, Ohio. And as you can see, I'm totally alone. They say this was built by the Hopewell culture, but nobody has any idea. That's claiming that these are the same people that built Cahokia. As you can see, this wall is 1,200 feet around, okay? This is encompassing 38 acres. It's like a perfect circle. There's cuts and entrances and exits in this wall going around this thing. They line up perfectly, not with the solstices. Apparently solstice reading in these like Stonehenge and stuff like that is bullshit. If you get enough data and do enough cross points, they can make anything line up with the solstice. This has to do with the moon's lunar circulation. I'm not smart enough to understand this astronomy, but every 29 days, the moon, which acts on its own axis, circles the Earth, but the Earth's on its own orbit axis thing. I don't really understand it, but you're going to see cuts in this ravine that align perfectly with the northernmost range of the moon rising and setting and the southernmost. And it's a perfect geometrical cut through the land. So they say this is the same culture that built Cahokia, but they don't really even know who built Cahokia. They call it all this just like encapsulating Hopewell culture, which it could be, but nobody knows. And nobody knows because they had no written language, even though it was the height of the Roman Empire, right? When they built all of this. But unfortunately, our Native Americans didn't have any written language. So what was this for? Was it ceremonial like they always say? Was it for religious reasons like they always say? Who knows? I find that hard to believe because religions on our timeline have made everybody a moron and nobody knows anything. Everybody believes in magic and ghosts, and well, now everybody believes in karma and yoga, but like I have trouble believing that this was some kind of celestial thing and they were able to build something like this, because as you're going to see right now, these cuts in the ravine, that thing follows a perfect line. That'll line up with the moon in the southernmost end or the northernmost end of its axis rotation. How did they do that at the height of the Roman Empire? The other thing about these mounds is that they're built with different kinds of soils. So these people that long ago were so good with soil, botany, ecology, that they were able to take different kinds of soils, mix them together, and build these mounds that stay here and have stood the test of time. We couldn't do that today. We could not do that today. We don't know anything today. So, I don't know. Maybe religion used to make everybody smarter, but I doubt that very highly. Obviously, it was aliens. This is where I am right now. So you can see this complex was massive.
So this is an artist's impression working with our lead archaeologists to create an eagle's eye view of what this site might have looked like 2,000 years ago. You see in the foreground, off to the west, just looking to the east, and there's the octagon. It's an 8-sided octagon form with a 20-meter circle next to it, with a parallel connecting passageway between the two. Off in the distance, you see where we're standing at right now. This is looking at the entranceway into the octagon. It's the Great Circle. It is 30-acre circle. So think 4 soccer fields end to end. Or if you're into skyscrapers, the Empire State Building could lie inside in the circle without the radio towers. But this square would have been large enough to take the Great Pyramid of Egypt, the Great Pyramid of Giza, and plop it right down in there, and it would fit with plenty of room on all sides. It's that big of a space. This one, 20 acres, over 1,000 feet across. And this one is unique. It actually does something for these people who are trying to make sense of where they fit in the world and those forces that were outside of their control. Things that they saw every day that they knew influenced their lives. The sun, the moon, stars in the sky. Not touchable, but affecting their lives. So just like all the ancient world, they ascribed them not as a fireball or a rock reflecting the light sun, but as living, alive. Grandmother Moon here in North America, grandfather sun. What better way to honor that original nightlight, Grandmother Moon, than to create an earthenwork that showed that the moon was predictable, consistent, and repeatable. And so, like the sun, we know that the moon has a pattern to it. The sun, we call them the winter and the summer solstice. So those are standstill moments. It goes as far in our perception to the north. Excuse me, yeah, that's north. In the summertime, and as far south in the wintertime as we'll ever go. It takes 6 months to go from one to the other, and then there's 6 months back. We call that a year now in our experience. This cycle is way more complicated. This cycle is 18.6 years. But they didn't really have much else to do other than look up at the sky at night. No watching of YouTube or Netflix, Game of Thrones, nothing like that. But they discovered over time that the moon had a pattern to it, just like the sun. So this is a picture showing one of those standstill moments. It's called the maximum northern blue rise. And it happens once every 18.6 years. What happens after that? Well, you probably have seen it, but sometimes we don't always register. The moon comes off the horizon in the east at a different spot every single day. But it has a pattern to it. So after this, the next day comes off here. Well, the next day here. And the next day, here. And the next day, here. You see the pattern here? Keeps going south off the eastern horizon until 14 days later, we have another standstill moment documented in the octagon called the maximum southern moonrise. The next day, it starts coming off a little farther north. Every day a little farther north until 14 days after that event, we're almost up to here. Almost. Okay? We're off by less than 1/5 the thickness of your little finger, off on a 20-mile horizon. You and I can't tell the difference. Well, maybe your eyes are better than mine. But it does keep moving south every single day. And at the same time, this keeps moving a little farther north. So if I was a visual astronomer, I would have noted a year after this fact, the moon was only coming this far north. And the next day, this far north. And the next year, this far north. So forth and so on. Until 9.3 years later. So think 9 years, 9 summers, and a season. We see the moon is right about there. And we look the next year, and it doesn't go any farther south, it goes north again. So that's called the minimum northern moonrise. At the same time, this is going this direction, this is going this direction. And sure enough, they documented it in the octagon. These two mounts right here point to what's called the minimum southern moonrise. So after that, they keep expanding until 9.3 years later, they're back out here. So not only do they document the moon rises, but also where it sets. So on the day that this set rises, look to the octagon. This spoke points exactly to where the moon will set that day. So it tracks all of those.
It's fascinating. It took a lot of time and a lot of study.
It did.
But how is that so exact?
What's that?
It's so perfect, you know?
It is. Every one of the alignments is less than 2/10 of a degree of perfect.
Pretty amazing. I mean, who knows what tools they have? We don't know.
We do not know. But they probably use their eyes a lot too.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. They didn't
That
have a lot of
sticks.
distractions. They didn't drive to work.
And probably just a series of
Video.
sticks, but it had to be passed down generation to generation. Because if you did this just once and then told people, hey, time to move some earth. This is about 1 million cubic feet of earth right here. And then you got it wrong. Oh my goodness. Cry and clamor. So they probably did this multiple times to see if it was repeatable.
That's Earth there?
Yep.
Okay, got it.
It was all
Right.
earth.
All right.
It currently is covered with grass, and it
Right.
probably was then. Because that's the great archaeological soil preservative, grass. So that's, now everything here was huge. As I said, even these pathways. Think modern day 16-lane highway wide.
Okay.
So think around 70 times 4. Pretty amazing, huh?
Yes.
Now the only place where bodies were buried was in this location right here. Today known as the Cherry Valley Ellipse. It was the only place so far that we've discovered bodies that were in the complex. There were no bodies in the geometric earthworks, no bodies in any of these smaller mounds. But, hey, definitely a place of repose at this site. But unfortunately, by the middle of the 1800s, all of it, and I do mean all of it, at that mortuary site was destroyed. Due to westward expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So,
Well, I see there's a lot of farming.
that's correct.
Yeah.
So do you have any questions? What was happening in the rest of the world? Well, the Great Wall of China just finished laying their last bricks about a couple hundred years before this was built. The Colosseum in Rome was just starting its construction when this was starting. And here in southern Ohio, they were working on creating geometrically shaped earthworks. This is not just the only one that was built during this 400 to 500 year period. It was one of at least 100 plus geometric earthworks that were constructed during this time period in Ohio. Cincinnati was a geometric earthwork. Portsmouth had a geometric earthwork. Marietta in southern Ohio, off the banks of the Ohio, was a geometric earthwork. Circleville was a geometric earthwork. And all the sites that are luckily part of this UNESCO designation were also part of that list. So we have 5 sites down in Chillicothe that are part of this. We have another site that was an earthenwork but wasn't geometric, but built by these people, called Fort Ancient. So right off Route 71, about 36 miles north of Cincinnati. People moving earth without the aid of wheelbarrows, carts, horses, shovels. It's all grass baskets and something to break up the soil. Think sticks, clamshell, deer shoulder blades, something to break it up, gather it in your hands, dump it in a basket, moving 21 million baskets. This site constructed one basket at a time. Over a generation, I think 20 to 30 years to build this site. But not one and done. There's hundreds of sites that were being built, not including all the other burial mounds that were being built at the same time. But lucky for them, during this 400 to 500 year period, we discovered that this time period in Ohio was relatively a peaceful time period when there wasn't warfare going on. How do we do that? Well, many skeleton remains were collected from the 1800s onwards up to about 1980. Stopped after that. But we wanted to know what kind of warfare was going on here. Well, we knew that the weapon of choice 2,000 years ago was the club. Big time. Spears were in existence, but not used as an offensive weapon, as a defensive weapon. Used more like a pike to protect your flanks. So, what kind of wounds would you see in the bones when you're using a...
Be a lot of blunt force trauma.
Right. Shattered skulls. One hit wonder. Shattered arms. Defensive wounds. Shattered legs. Crippling wounds. They didn't find a single blunt force trauma wound in any of those 7,000 bodies. They go a generation before and a generation after. They see it all the time. All right. Oh, pretty peaceful time. Maybe they didn't have to look over their shoulder when they were building these. So an amazing period in a country, in an area of the world that in the 1600s was known as the land of death. Ohio was known as the river of blood in the 1600s because of the Beaver Wars. But here, 1,600 years before that time, this was the land of peace. So pretty amazing stuff. And here was a place of gathering and a place of ritual. So I can just visualize people coming from all walks of life, all parts of the country, because we know that they came from all parts of the country, because of the material that they brought here. Not so much as trade, but for offering, we think. So we see obsidian. Almost all of it coming from Yellowstone National Park. Obsidian cliff there. That's 1,800 miles away. But you can get here all the way from Yellowstone without getting out of a canoe once. Go down Yellowstone River, dumps into the Missouri, to the Mississippi, Ohio, Muskegon, Licking. You're here. In fact, all of the geometric earthworks that are in Ohio are next to rivers and streams that eventually dump into the Ohio.
That's a fascinating fact.
Because the only way to get here 2,000 years ago was either by foot or by nature's highways. That was it.
Okay, at this point, two idiots came in and started asking a bunch of stupid questions about some culture that lived by where they lived. It was totally uninteresting and derailed the entire speech. I'm sorry about some of the audio. Of course, people had to come in and take a piss and flush the toilet every 10 seconds. But I think if you listen to that and then go to this or like rewatch what I filmed earlier, it would make more sense. And I'm still only understand about 5% of what this guy said. But it's unbelievable how stupid we are now and how smart they were then, because they didn't just get it then. They had to get it generations before that and keep passing it down. So, fascinating stuff. So after listening to that guy, Jim, man, it's crazy to think about. They just call this all this hopewell, right? But nobody knows who the hopewell were. Because by the time the settlers got here, other Indian tribes lived here and talked about this ancient culture that was already gone when they got here. But this is acres and acres of a perfect circle. Or octagon. I can't even remember, man. I just got so much information. They found obsidian here from Yellowstone. People used to take kayaks or canoes down rivers from Yellowstone to come here and trade. They don't know anything about who was here. Once upon a time, a bunch of rich people showed up in the 1800s to turn this into a horse race track. Thank God somehow all these earthworks remained. There used to be a racetrack in here, though. When the Ohioans set up their factories, they built the Licking County Fair in here. This was all a racetrack for a while. Somehow, though, they had the foresight not to knock all these mounds down because they knew it was ancient. And a couple of the farmers actually gave a shit, which at the time was unheard of. Society and civilization started in North America and moved out to Africa and South America and came back. They're going to figure this out one day. The Bible, all that takes place in North America. This is where civilization started. Fight me. So after leaving this place on the way to Columbus, I just drove through this suburb, which I thought people might find interesting who have never been to Ohio. This is what eastern central Ohio neighborhood looks like. All right, next episode, Columbus, y'all. Peace.
And your mouth was always running, the cops were always coming, and the dog thought we were the same too. And the painting never dried, and the rent was always a fight, but I was having the best time of my life. And
Was that sick or what? We don't know anything that's going on here, do we? We just find little relics every now and then that upsets the entire human story. Please like and subscribe. I'm not going to keep asking. Just if you could do it, that would be sick. I got a book coming out June 25th. All new poems. They're pretty sick. A couple of them have won awards. Stay tuned for that. And the rest of my books are linked below. Read them on Amazon. Read the reviews on Amazon if you dig any of that. Pick it up and then DM me and I'll send you something cool for free. All right? One love. We're going to Columbus, Ohio next.